Good day, everybody. Welcome to this webinar of 117 Capital Limited. My name is Imran Musa, and I'll be moderating this webinar. We are expecting two speakers, Professor Adam and Dr. Abdullahi Ishola. Dr. Abdullahi Ishola hasn't joined yet, but before he joins, we have Professor Adam on board, and inshallah, we will dive into the conversations with him. So I'll provide a little bit of insight into what we'll be discussing today. So today, our topic for this webinar is Waqf as a measure against poverty, or Waqf as a tool for poverty alleviation. So the way this webinar will be structured is our two speakers, it's like a panel session. So our two speakers, Professor Adam will go first, and I would have a few questions for him, which he will now dissect and go into. And then after that, Dr. Ishola will come next to have his own part of the segment. So Professor Adam, assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Nah.
Good morning this morning. Ramadan Mubarak.
Good morning, Prof.
Thank you.
Now, so Prof, we'll dive straight into it. I have a few guests here, and I know I've mentioned the word Waqf, and it might be a strange terminology to a couple of people, even within the Muslim world. We're very used to things like Zakat, we're used to Sadaka, we're used to all of these. But when we speak about Waqf, it's a very strange terminology. So many people group, and for those who understand Waqf, or for those who know Waqf, they group it together with Zakat and Sadaqah. So can you clarify to us what Waqf is and how it is different from Zakat and Sadaqah? Prof, are you there?
Please, am I audible?
Okay, yes, we can hear you now, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much. A'udhu billah, bismillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Wa ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. First of all, let me thank the 117 Capital for taking these bold steps to create more awareness on this all-important Islamic social finance institution that is widely misunderstood and understood as well. And I'm happy that you begin with one of the major sources of misconception, which is the concept of Waqf with other similar concepts, as you cite, the Waqf, the Wasiya, and the Sadaka. So, I believe Wasiya also is one of the concepts that are often misused instead of Waqf. So in a nutshell, Waqf is a perpetual charitable endowment where assets and lands or buildings or money are set aside permanently to benefit the beneficiary. The key feature of Waqf is that the principal asset remains intact and only the generated income is used for charitable purposes. So therefore, it is institutionalized and often serve as long-term goals, such as funding schools, hospitals, mosques, orphanages, skills acquisition, entrepreneurship training, and other all sectors of social amenity of human life. So when you look at this, you will find out that it is perpetual in nature. It is perpetual charitable act, where the main asset is preserved, but it is only the income generated through it that is going to be used for the charitable purpose. When you take Zakat, on the other hand, you will find that Zakat is a compulsory form of charity and one of the 5 pillars of Islam, as we all know. So it is an obligation for eligible Muslims to give 2.5% of their wealth annually to specific categories of beneficiaries that were mentioned in Surah Al-Tawbah, the 8 categories of the beneficiaries of zakat. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله. Majorly they are the poor, the debtors, and the wayfarers. So unlike Waqf, zakat focuses on immediate relief and address basic needs. You see, even in the scope, they differ because this one provide long-term and this one provide just immediate need or immediate relief for addressing the basic needs. When you look at the Sadaka, which is the general name for all voluntary and non-obligatory charity, it can also be given at any time and in any amount and to anyone in need. So, you know, it's usually it is also to solve short-term needs. And it can include not just monetary aid, but also act of kindness, of feeding people who are hungry, helping someone in difficulty, and all of that. Therefore, Sadaqah is flexible and is meant to generate goodwill and rewards. On the other hand, when we take zakah, when we take wasiya, which is the one that is being frequently also mixed, wasiya, which is a will, it refers to will or bequest, where an individual allocates up to 1/3 of their wealth to be distributed after their death for charitable and or personal purposes. Therefore, it provides a way to leave legacy by a distinct by way of giving out something. So it's distinct from inheritance law as it cannot exceed 1/3 of the deceased estate. So in summary, Waqf serves as a permanent structured endowment. Zakat is a mandatory annual obligation. Sadaqah is a flexible voluntary charity, and Wasiya allows for posthumous contributions. So all of them together, you can find out they form a general framework of Islamic social welfare system. So this is the major, this is just a kind of an overview on the concept that are similar around Waqf. Thank you. You are muted, please.
So thank you, Prof. I was saying that you mentioned that Waqf is something that is long-term, something perpetual, something that benefits people for years to come. So historically, is there a way that Waqf has had more long-term impact on poverty alleviation than the Zakat and the Sadaqah itself from our history in Islam, right from the time of the Prophet till now? It
Yes.
shows that Waqf has had more impact in alleviating poverty than even Zakat and Sadaqah?
Yes, actually, Waqf has been a sustainable way of combating most of the social challenges right from the dawn of Islam. During the time of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when Waqf was first initiated. And for information's sake, Waqf, as narrated by Imam Ash-Shafi'i, has been the sole establishment of Islamic civilization. Before Islamic civilization, there was no any traces of any other civilization that practiced Waqf. So when Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu, the second caliph, got an orchard in Khaybar, he met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked him to advise him on what to do with it. He asked him to make it as a waqf by preserving the coffers and making as charity the proceeds that are being generated through this work. So over time, since the time of the companions, we have traces of this work that were used to solve social problems. We have the work of Uthman bin Affan for the well of Ruma. And we also have the work of Ali ibn Abi Talib in the land of Yambu. We also have that of Umar, which is very close to Marwa. Other companions also had their own work. We have work of Abu Talha, we have Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, and other 10 people, 10 companions that were being that were being promised to be dwellers of Jannah right from this world. So that's why Jabir bin Abdullah was reported to have said that he has never known, to the best of his knowledge, any companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who had opportunity to do work except he has done it. So that subsequently, after the time of the companions, we have the other dynasties. We have Umayyad dynasty and the Abbasid dynasties, where the work developed and was expanded extensively, horizontally and vertically. It is expanded by way of practice and regulation. The governance was developed to the form of where the what is known as Diwanul Waqf was established, which is a commission or ministry of Awqaf that were established at that time. So also subsequent Islamic dynasties, notably among them the Ottoman Empire. The practice of work in the Ottoman Empire was so large to the extent that a person can be born in a house belonging to a waqf, sleep in a cradle provided by the waqf, be educated from the proceeds of waqf, be engaged in teaching in the institution of waqf, read the books that are provided for waqf, and be taught by a teacher who is engaged and paid by waqf, and also serve in a waqf institution and earn salary. And when he's sick, he can be admitted in the hospital of waqf, be served with the medicines of waqf, and be treated from the proceeds of waqf, and placed, if he dies, he will just be prepared in the waqf proceed and taken to the in the coffins of waqf and be buried in the cemetery of waqf. So this is just to tell you the size and the scope through which waqf was practiced across the Islamic civilization. Unlike here in Nigeria, when we come, we will find out that this practice has been very low when you compare with the other parts of the world, even though there were traces of teaching the books that talk about waqf in Islamic jurisprudence, the traditional method of teaching Islamic jurisprudence. When we trace back to the history, we'll find out that Islamic learning books in fiqh that are the same Maliki schools, where if you take Risala, for example, you find that there is a complete chapter on hubus. If you take Mukhtasar Khalil, there is a complete chapter using the waqf and its permissibility and all of that. So the practice actually has been very low, and maybe this part of this type of conversation will be regarded as a way forward in order to revive the practice of this age-long and all-important Islamic social finance institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. So, Prof, why do you think that this practice is not very much practiced in this concept of work? Not, I said, why do you think that this concept of work is not very much practiced, not only in Nigeria, but even all around the world compared to how it was in the past? And, all we know is, zakat, and we look at zakat as, the sole way for Muslims to alleviate poverty and all of that. And why do you think that waqf is not so much practiced? Is it that people don't know it, or people don't understand it? Or what do you think are the causes of, the decline in the practicing of waqf?
Yeah, actually, waqf is practiced previously in the history, as we've cited, and currently there is a resurgence of awareness
Hello, Prof. Are you speaking? I can't hear you. Just for confirmation, okay, I think Prof's network went off and he will join back very soon. So by the way, while the conversation, for those of us who've been here from the start of the conversation, you can easily take down questions or things you want us to address, because you know this concept of Waqf is one which is very important. Like the Prof just mentioned recently, he mentioned how some societies like the Ottoman Empire, people from the day they're born till the day they die, social service is being covered for them, from healthcare to education to various aspects of their life being covered through a Waqf. I came across something even recently in a small, there's a small town in one of the East African countries, and that town, I think in Kenya also, that they established a Waqf for themselves, the Muslims. And this Waqf, they had a Waqf to cover everything: marriage, burial, education. And it became, you know, a sustainable model for them to run their lives. So this is something that we as individuals who want to take up, and as institutions as well want to take up, so that the Ummah can be empowered by having a proper system like the Waqf system that reduces our reliance on things like donations, things like aid. You know, we are not really looking, we have an Ummah that we've built over the years that people cannot come to us and give us handouts, because we have what our caps in place that are taking care of people's basic amenities. If people's food, if people's healthcare has been taken care of, education has been taken care of, then we wouldn't have situations whereby people come from, you know, all around the world or the country and come and give us handouts and we run to them like that's the best thing we've ever seen. So we'll gradually wait for the prof to come back, and once he's back, he will share more light on some certain areas. And then if you have any insights to chip in before the prof comes on board, the floor is up. All you need to do is raise up your hand, and I will allow you to speak, inshallah. All right, the prof is back. Assalamu alaikum, prof.
Okay, sorry for the interruption, please.
Okay, that's
Am
fine,
I audible
prof.
now, please?
Naam, you are, prof. You were speaking about why, you know, the reason why there's a decline in the practice of work. Is it due to lack of knowledge? Is it due to lack of knowledge, or is it due to a
Yeah. What I was saying is that globally there is this notion of lack of adequate knowledge and practice, but the degree of knowledge and practice varies. Another challenge is, beside lack of awareness and knowledge, is the issue of governance. Because in many jurisdictions, the governance has been government-based, where and we all know that in most cases, government is not a very good manager. So this also contributed in losing confidence and having a lot of challenges when it comes to uh, the actual practice. So if you take, for example, in Nigeria here, one of the key challenges related to the governance is that the governance has been placed under the residual list of legislation, where the Constitution of Nigeria has made it under Islamic personal law, which we know that it is all part of the state legislation or state powers of legislation, as provided by Section 2772 and 262, 277 and 262, that all matters related to Islamic personal law, including Waqf, should be under the state legislation. And unfortunately, the states couldn't understand the role to even enact the relevant laws that will accommodate or that will regulate the system. And we know even the capacity of state regulation are not as strong as that of federal level. So this is also one of the challenges. And as well, if we take it as the government-based management, one of the issue is the issue lack of trust, as we know how corruption rotten the public system. So in many cases, many people may not want to take their hereafter investment, which they want to receive its proceed after their life. They will just place it under the corrupt government officials who they know that even the one under their possession which is given for the social amenity and public needs were not properly managed. So this is also one of the challenges. But alhamdulillah, with this kind of conversation and other ones that are done by other professional or organizations, and the coming up with other organizations like Azawan Association of Zakat and Work Operators. So we are having a lot of approaches that will accommodate this, which is going to be hybrid. Some of them are government-based, some of them are organizational-based, some of them are emirate-based, and all of that. So these are some of the challenges. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Prof. So do you think that as an ummah, there is a possibility for states to have central works? But like you also mentioned, there's the lack of trust of, in government, and people are like, why would I give my money to the government to run my affairs? So is there a possibility that the organization you just mentioned, the Zakat and Waqf organization, can now have its units in all the states that can now establish state works that will cater for the states? And do you think that if this move materializes, it would help us reduce the reliance on government aid and even foreign humanitarian support?
Yeah, actually, my own perspective on this is that we're supposed to adopt currently the bottom-top approach. Is the current operators of Waqf that will take it to that level. It's not that the government will now think over it. We're supposed to have a bottom-top approach. When we massively engage in awareness, when people got aware and use the most preferred current legal jurisdiction of it, which I believe my learned brother, Dr. Ishola, will emphasize on this, where we recommend that all the work that are established be registered under CAMA, Company and Allied Matters Act Part F, as IT incorporated trustees, because they have the same perpetual nature. And under the exclusive list of legislation for federal government, but then it
I don't know, but on my end, I cannot hear Prof again. I believe probably an interruption, maybe a call or something has interrupted the network of Prof. Okay. So again, we just wait a little bit and he should be back on board with us. Okay,
yeah,
I think
thank
he
you.
is.
So sorry for the interruption. So by having this type of organizations, so we can now leverage on states, boards, departments, and commissions of work that were established in many states of the northern Nigeria, while they are being regulated in general by the CAMA, which is under the Corporate Affairs Commission, then they will be partly regulated by what they own as assets by these departments. And from there, the conversation will go higher, where we educate government. These organizations will even take the responsibility of advocacy. So now government will see reason, because there is prevalence of these work organizations that are doing it based on the best models globally and best practices. Then we now have the government understood the concept, so that they will regulate, and they can also incorporate a body corporate, like they used to have their microfinance banks. So many states of the federation have their own microfinance banks. So they can have a state-owned foundation that is solely responsible for state work, where all these social amenities, and it can be financed by the state. So I think this is the way to go. But the most important thing is for us to understand and adopt the best practice and the best model, taking into consideration our peculiarities here in Nigeria. Thank you.
Now, thank you very much, Prof. So Dr. Ishola just joined. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Ishola.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Now, good morning, and welcome to the webinar as well. So Prof was just discussing, Prof just took us through the history of work, how it differs from Sadaka and Zakat and Wasiyah, and also he spoke a little bit into the, why there's a decline in the adoption of work, especially here in this country, compared to how it was in the past. And also, we started to speak into the governance structures, and that's why I want to bring you in. So one of the biggest challenges facing work today is the governance. And would you say, Prof has started to delve into that a bit. From your own angle, what would you say are key obstacles that prevent work institutions from operating efficiently?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. I want to thank the organizers of this event, and I pray Allah accept it from us as an act of ibadah. It's glad to be with Professor Adam once again. May Allah continue to strengthen you and preserve you upon goodness.
Thank you very much, Baba Ishola.
We all know that Waqf is still growing in our country and even globally. And one of there are a lot of challenges facing Waqf. One of it is lack of adequate knowledge about Waqf itself. And I see this as the foundation of the challenges that is constitute a kind of inhibition to the growth and progress of Waqf. Even those that are stakeholders in the Waqf sectors, it's still very disturbing that even many of them still do not have the adequate knowledge about Waqf. Because unlike other social finance, Islamic social finance institutions, it's just like Zakah, Waqf is not something that anybody would just say, perhaps he takes a book and read and just continue, or without even equipping himself with adequate knowledge. So knowledge gap is one of the challenges. And I want to buttress this practically.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, doctor.
Wa alaikum salam. Sorry, just give me a few minutes. I want to disconnect direct call so that I will not be distracted. I'm sorry.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, like I was saying, even in Nigeria, when we look at various institutions of learning, from the lower to the institutions of higher learning, we hardly can see any university offering a specialized training in Waqf. Even though there is some recent development where some university, they are coming up with a certificate or diploma in Waqf. But all the same, we still have a lot of backlogs of adequate exposure and knowledge in the area of Waqf. And for that reason, it becomes so challenging that people operate Waqf without structuring it properly. So that will be a second challenge, that people float Waqf, they facilitate Waqf without necessary and proper structuring being put in place. For instance, I just try to review a particular Waqf structure that has been put in place. And in the structure, the promoter of that Waqf scheme employed one of the trustees, which operates under the principles of the English law of trust, as the trustee of that Waqf. And there are a lot of differences between trust in the English law and Waqf in Islamic law. By the English law, any trust property is believed to belong to the trustee, while Waqf does not belong to anybody. Rather, we say it belongs to Allah. So we can see a kind of conflict in that regard, that one will now wonder that with the involvement of a trustee in the management of Waqf, the way it is structured, how well do you want to say that such a Waqf has been properly structured? So knowledge, lack of proper structuring, and as well as a lack of governance. Because even in the aspect of the Nazir or Mutawalli al-Waqf, the managers of Waqf, the structure that is supposed to be in place are not there. So when we look at all this, we see that they constitute a very big challenge to the growth of Waqf. Then another challenge, which I think should also be of interest to us, is the fact that the Waqf itself is not being properly employed to be effectively used to address a particular challenge or problem in the society. For instance, when people do Waqf, they always approach it in the way of Sadaka, to the extent that at the end of the day, Waqf that has been done, which is supposed to be to have impact on the society, we now end up like as if they are just doing a kind of charitable distributions from time to time. So this is also a very big challenge that I think should also be looked into, and requires some kind of urgent attention in that regard.
Now, thank you very much, Doctor. So my next question will be, some people argue that around the world, some places where Waqf has been operated, that, government has been the regulator of Waqf, and, there's a government regulation on Waqf. And some of the people have said that it has kind of stifled the growth of work institutions. So first of all, do you agree with that? If yes, do you believe that Waqf should become entirely independent, or it should be under the control of a government?
Well, the two options, like we do say, we have the official regulation of Waqf and we have the self-regulation of Waqf. To me, I believe that self-regulation of Waqf with some proper policy and law being put in place will go further in assisting the growth of Waqf than when it is completely controlled by the government. I give an example of Malaysia, where all the Waqf are under the religious council. And if anybody wants to establish a Waqf, you need to approach the relevant authority. You cannot just decide and say you are establishing Waqf without putting it under the control of Waqf. I recall that we have done a research where we try to review this system and how it's constituting a lot of constraint even to the growth of Waqf in that country. So too much regulation is not good. Why a kind of harmonized system where there will be some kind of a self-regulation of Waqf, and that will allow for a kind of a competition, because individual, whether corporate or group, we know that they have a kind of a latitude to go as far as they desire, rather than where they have a regimented government directive that if you want to do your Waqf, this is what you can do, and even these are the people that can be your beneficiaries, and this is the way you must go about it. If there are a policy or law put in place within which everybody can operate. I give example of the business regulation in Nigeria, why every business or companies are required to register with the Corporate Affairs Commission. How you carry out your business, except with some little requirement that you have to comply with, is entirely your own decision. And I believe this will be the best way for the Waqf to go if we really want it to grow, without much constraint. So I subscribe to the self-regulation over and above the government, a complete regulation of Waqf for growth.
If I get it correctly, what you prefer a model whereby it is self-regulated, but there's a policy framework that guides every work that is established, and this would go a longer way. So this question now I would ask is for Prof. Adam, if he's still on the call. Is Prof. Adam still on the call? Okay, yeah.
Yes, please.
So in modern economies, right, we see, even in Nigeria here, we see how microfinance, institutions and even venture capital institutions support entrepreneurs in their businesses, raising capital, seed capital, all of these things. Can the work-based financing compete with these models?
Yes, actually, there are other models that are practiced elsewhere in the world in other jurisdictions that can also be practiced in Nigeria, even though we are still at the infancy stage, but then we can give them trial. Currently, I know some attempts by some capital market operators to have this type of cash work, and they are still battling with the regulator to make sure that the legal and regulatory framework is provided. So for example, if we take the microfinance based work, there are a lot of models that were practiced for the microfinance based work, which integrates the principles of Islamic endowment with the financial empowerment to address poverty and promote economic development. Usually in this type of model, work funds are utilized to provide interest-free loans to micro entrepreneurs, enabling them to expand their small businesses. So by this approach, you see, we can eliminate the burden of interest making and making the access to capital and financing accessible to underprivileged and the small and medium enterprises, particularly for our teaming youths that are looking for startup capitals. And additionally, this type of work-based microfinance also includes vocational training and mentorship programs. By equipping the beneficiaries with the skills and knowledge needed to succeed, they will be their capacities will be built financially and technically so that they can excel in whatever business they engage. So by combining the financial support with the capacity building, so the model will foster sustainable livelihoods and reduce the poverty, contributes to the community development while adhering to the ethical principles of Islam. So this is how the micro finance based work is practiced. As well, there is also cooperative society based work, where we combine the principles of Islamic endowment with the cooperative models to address the socio-economic challenges. Usually in this approach, we work funds are utilized to establish cooperative that provide financial and social support, as well as you all know that they support socially and financially. So these cooperatives can focus on various areas such as affordable housing, small businesses, financing, community development, and all of that. So by integrating work with the cooperative societies, this innovation will create sustainable framework for addressing poverty, unemployment, housing shortage, and other social challenges. So virtually, this is also another model that there are a lot of practices in Bangladesh, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, where they practice it and they were all successful. Beside it, there is another one which is also very important, which is cash work, which is sukuk link cash work. This structure is done through sukuk, and it is the normal sukuk issuance that is done, that is used in order to solve some of this problem. Whoever is subscribing that amount not to get proceed directly, rather is to make it as a work. There are two ways of doing it. It can be eternal, which is perpetual, mu'abbad, where the capital is just giving will be perpetual, and returns will be used for socio-economic projects that will support the purpose for which the work is established. The second one is temporary, like the federal government sukuk that were issued, usually with the 3 or 4 years tenure. With 6 or 7 years tenure, can be used just within that period. Whoever gives that amount, it is just a temporary work, which is allowed even in the Maliki school of jurisprudence. So the capital will be temporarily used in the projects, and whenever the returns is realized, instead of payment of this proceed directly to the subscribers, now it will be directed to the charitable cause for which the work was established. So the first practice of this was done in Indonesia in 2020 as cash work linked sukuk, and it was very effective. So these are some of the models that were practiced elsewhere in other jurisdictions, and they will be very, very much beneficial and also practicable, even though there are challenges, I believe. But then if we stay firmly, we can overcome many of these challenges, and the proceeds or the socio-economic benefits of the of sukuk, of the waqf, will be harnessed, inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah. Still on this topic, just before you go, just before I move to Dr. Ishola. So many people will argue that, you know, when a Waqf starts, a lot of people say, you know, the Waqf can give qard hasana, interest-free, free loans, and the vocational training you mentioned. The question is, some people will say, is it sustainable? Will people return these interest-free loans? Would these people harness the skills they've learned? Would it eventually have the impact? So all these ifs. And are there any measures based on, you know, the countries that already practice this very well? Are there any measures that you know that they put in place, for example, when it comes to specifically work to support, you know, job creation and businesses? Is there any measures you know that they put in place that aided it to succeed?
Yeah, actually, any work that is established has its own aim or purpose it wishes to achieve, and it has been realized that workplace transformative role in job creation by financing small businesses and startups through interest-free loans, and this is usually is done through cash work. And it is usually practiced by way of revolving fund that will be used to be given Qard Hassan to the teaming youths who wants the startup capital. And even that one, it is not only enough, rather the financial stop is the support given to them will go in line with giving them vocational training to equip the individual with the skills needed to pursue the meaningful employment or start up their own businesses. So you can see the financial support now will enable the aspiring entrepreneurs to overcome capital barriers and establish their ventures, fostering into the economic growth and innovation. So, and usually the KPIs, the key performance indicators of that particular work, are to built in order to be measuring, evaluating the level through which they have achieved what the work was intended to do. Would definitely risk mitigation mechanisms that will be put in place to make sure that the capital is not tampered with, because this is the primary responsibility of work superintendents to make sure that there is no the capital remains intact and it is only the benefit that goes to the people. So actually, in many jurisdictions where there is proper regulation, the regulators put in place this type of KPIs and they monitor and they observe all what they do. But actually, in our case in Nigeria, it is also self-monitored, because beside the one under KAMA that you just have it to incorporate a body corporate under IT Part F, incorporated trustees. There is no any straight and well spelled out regulation for work in the country, as highlighted by my learned brother, Dr. Ishola. So actually, there is need for this, and in other jurisdictions, it is being practiced. There are key performance indicators that these regulators monitor. But for our own case, usually the KPIs are inbuilt in all organizations. And additionally, there is a voluntary also work that is also being carried out by the Association of Zakat and Work Operators of Nigeria, where they also monitor in form of annual return. But this is not as organized as what it ought to be if it is a government that regulated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was very insightful. So I'll move to Dr. Ishola quickly. With regard, we were speaking about governance, and you know, there was something Prof even mentioned about trust in terms of the work when people now want to contribute to maybe a already existing work organization or structure, and say, okay, we want to also have you guys manage our work and aid it in growing to the best of our abilities. There's this concept of, you know, transparency, the efficiency, the trust. So with the rise of technology, you know, with the rise of AI, fintech, the blockchain technology, Do you see that these technologies will play any role in making work more transparent and efficient? And especially for, we have a very tech-savvy young generation coming up who are thinking, a lot of miles into the technological space. So is there a way we could integrate the work system to be technologically based to aid transparency and efficiency?
Yes, of course, there are a lot of benefit that can be tapped from the technology to support workflow. But one thing that I would like us to even pay attention to is the fact that when we talk of technology, it's going beyond just the computer. Like one of the, a writer said that technology has to do with a kind of doing things in a way that will make it effective. So if you look at it in that way, even whatever technology we want to adopt, you must have it that our focus is to make workflow management and its impact more effective. That is our focus. And I'll give you an example of even an Islamic cooperative society. Usually, when people talk of a cooperative, what comes to their mind is an association where people will have a particular period in a week or in a month where they will come together, meet, discuss, and get reports and updates on whatever they are doing. But this time around, we realize that it is not necessary that until when people come together and they are able to interact physically before they can carry out an Islamic cooperative society activity. As we have practically, explore the use of even what we call cooperative fintech in a way to carry out the activities of a cooperative society. And the trend now is that the workforce specialists and professionals, they are exploring how blockchain technology can be explored in order to improve workflow services. And this is not something that anybody can go against, because it has been the Sharia compliance, Sharia principle aspect of it have been analyzed, and there is nothing that is going to be against the Sharia in employing the technology. But there are the ways of using the technology in enhancing the performances of workflow. And that's why I've earlier mentioned that one of the challenges facing workflow is the lack of proper institutionalization of workflow itself. For instance, we have 5 major pillars of workflow, which must be present before we can say we have a valid workflow. By the orthodox view, is considered to be 4, but the modern scholars are advocating that a 5th one should be added, which now makes it 5. So the first one is the Waqf, that is the workflow proprietor, which also has its own conditions and principles attached to it. Then we have the Mawquf Ali. There must be clarity on the workflow beneficiaries, just as we also have the Mawquf itself, the property that is constituted as workflow. And of course, the terms and conditions, the legal terms of the workflow must be properly well spelled out, like it's done in the workflow deed. Then the 5th one which is now being advocated to be considered as a pillar of Waqf, is the Waqf manager. So now, if we want to employ technology, we have to focus the technology on how each of these pillars will be effectively enhanced. For instance, if you are a Waqf manager, you manage different Waqf that is instituted by different proprietors. Then with the use of technology, how do you want to ensure that each of the Waqf proprietor gets the proper information, report, and updates with regards to his own Waqf, rather than mixing it up with the report in respect of another Waqf? So if we use like a blockchain, for example, we are going to carry out this more effectively. The same thing goes with the Waqf beneficiary. How do you want to ensure that the same set of beneficiary, like it happens in Zakat, some people have become a kind of a Zakat benefit shopping. Shoppers. They engage in a Zakat benefit shopping. Like we do say we have fatwa shopping. Some people engage in Zakat benefit shopping. They will be the same people to collect Zakat here. When they move to another place, they will also be the one to confirm, to collect Zakat in another place. So if with the employment of the technology like a blockchain now, when the beneficiary have been integrated into the necessary technological facility, this one will ensure that we don't have the same set of beneficiary coming to benefit from this, different Waqf. Whereas those who have made the Waqf would think that they have enlarged the scope of their beneficiary, not knowing that it is still the same circle of beneficiary that is being imparted. So we can see in the area of beneficiary as well, and also in the area of even the mawkuf, the property that is being made. If somebody makes a Waqf of different property, and we want to know which of them is really imparting, through the technology, we can easily detect and identify that, okay, this very particular Waqf property that has been made as Waqf by the same proprietor is doing well more than the other. Or we may also do a kind of grouping of similar Waqf property. For instance, where different Waqf proprietors have made Waqf of landed properties, then we may want to group them together to see how they are performing better than the Waqf that is made with cash. So through the technology, a lot of revolution and impact, more impact that we can really make on the growth of Waqf. So in response to your answer, with the use of technology, the Waqf will have a better future to come and even growth faster than it is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So next part I'll be delving into very quickly is the agricultural Waqf. We know throughout history, we've seen various parts of the world, like the Ottoman Empire, they had this Waqf managed farmlands like the Sulaimani Waqf that were agricultural lands that produced, funded soup kitchens that give free meals to the poor. In the Mamluk Empire in Egypt, 14th century, they had this Al Nasser Muhammad Waqf that did canal irrigation for production of wheat and barley. So what would an agricultural Waqf structure for us here in Nigeria look like?
Now, first, we have to look at, consider different factors. As we all know that land is very precious as a property to people, so it may be difficult to say perhaps we are going to have outright takeover of land from landowners. So the factors that we have to consider, firstly, the land that we want to use as a Greek Waqf, we need to design the best approach for it. Is it going to be the one that we are going to partner with the landowners, that those that want to do the Waqf will be the farmers who want to cultivate on the land? If we are not able to have the support of the farmers to consider themselves as the Waqf, that is the Waqf proprietor, I think the best that practical that we can look at is that let's assume like everybody does carry out his individual commercial agricultural activity. So we will go the same way, but we will know that if we acquire the land for the purpose of agriculture, the land will be acquired as Waqf. And whatever that is now coming from that land will be the thamaru that we want to derive from the Waqf to benefit people, which are the agricultural products. So if we have the land, the best thing is for us to have the land itself where we want to cultivate the Waqf farm to be a Waqf. Because without that, there may be a lot of conflict and crisis. For instance, if we lease the land, if the landowner, the lease expires or for whatever reason want to revoke that lease agreement, it means that will be an end to that Waqf farm. That is number one. Then number two is that those that want to benefit, if we have already established a kind of forum for them where they know that maybe at every interval, every month or annually, quarterly, they are expecting certain produce from that farm. And that's for the fact that the land has now ceased to be available, then they no longer have access to that benefit. That could be very challenging. So the starting point is that whatever land we want to use, we must try to ensure that it is a Waqf land. Then secondly, we must also be very selective in what we are going to produce, plant on that land. We have to consider different agricultural produce to be planted on that land, so that the requirement of perpetuity and continuous benefit from that Waqf land, we make the expected impact to be felt by the beneficiary, and thereby bringing the desired reward to the proprietor. So this is just one of the things. Then one of the areas that we may want to look at in terms of the Nigerian law is the fact that under the Nigerian Land Use Act, we all know that ownership of land is considered to be within the period of 99 years. And this is one of the areas where we are still advocating for some kind of review of the Land Use Act. Perhaps they could give some kind of special recognition to landed property that have been made Waqf, and they could be registered with the relevant land registration authority as Waqf. And once that is done, it could be afforded the exemption to the general law of the land expiring at the end of 999 years. Then another area that we must also want to look at it is the financing approach, that those who want to make Waqf that may not have the opportunity of floating a Waqf farm, so to say, we could look at the possibility of them making cash available as cash Waqf, which can now be invested in the farm land, so that whatever that is now coming from it through that investment, we afford them the opportunity of benefiting from their cash Waqf. So while we can make a farm, Waqf farm outrightly that will be constituted as farm land, then farm Waqf, then there's also the opportunity of investing cash Waqf in farmland.
Now, thank you very much, Doctor. So just to add something or to ask something, from what we're understanding, that means for the agricultural work to actually work, the most practical ways that it would actually work, it means that we might need, the introduction, of the private sector to ensure that this is feasible, because as at right now, like you mentioned, land is very precious. So this might require collaborations with individual farmers, institutional farmers, that we can now work together to now maybe provide this system for them. And then also, I also think that beyond, having farmlands, just like part of the works I mentioned, like the one in the Mamluk Empire, what they provided irrigation systems in the community farms. So by providing these irrigation systems, it made farming easier, and then it made food abundant for people in those communities. And this was their own contribution towards agricultural work. So finally, or my final point before we go into our closing reflections, will be that it's on the concept of this self-sufficient Muslim economy and the role of Waqf in it. So do you honestly think that Waqf will become a serious alternative to the conventional capitalism in terms of wealth distribution and economic growth, and around the world, but with specifics to Nigeria?
Yes, that is the expectation. But like I've said, we need to address all the various challenges. There is need for people to go much more into the acquiring the knowledge about Waqf. Waqf has a lot of potentials that have not yet been explored, like even in the aspect of family wealth sustainability, wealth creation, like even as mentioned by Professor Adam, there are a lot of employment opportunity that can be created if we properly institutionalize our Waqf sector. So I look at Waqf as a sector that is going to revolutionize the Islamic social finance, and it stands the opportunity to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with other sectors like Islamic capital market, Islamic banking, Islamic takaful. This is the way I foresee it, if only we can properly institutionalize it. Like those who may want to float Waqf, if they approach the institutionalization of Waqf with a kind of commitment, with a kind of zeal and expectation which those who establish capital markets, Islamic capital markets, Islamic takaful, Islamic insurance institution, and Islamic banking, the kind of zeal, kind of business-like mind with which they go into all this establishment, if we can adopt the same, rather than just seeing it like a charitable institution that whether it produces or it yields the result or not, we are less concerned, because some people will believe that under the banner of saying innamal a'malu binniyat, that the intention is what matters. if I've been able to carry out my intention of imparting on people, and it turned out that within very few years, a big workful institution that is established is no longer there, then what is the purpose? Whereas we have in other parts of the world, like in Malaysia, in Turkey, we have a workful institution like a Sabansi Foundation, which has a university. It has a lot of workful institutions that are still very well operated till now. It's because they approach their workful with a kind of a serious mind. So if we do the same, we can really have a lot of potential to explore in our workful institution. And that is why we need a kind of a policy framework that will guide everybody, so that everybody will not just be doing things just the way they like, whereas they are not even complying with the even the Sharia requirement with regards to establishing workful. So with this, I believe a lot of potential which we can really expect from workful.
And thank you very much, Doctor. So final words, Prof. Adam, what would you say are the next steps? So we've spoken about it, and there's one thing which people say. They say conferences, webinars, there's a lot of talking and no action follows. So 117 Capital hosting the both of you esteemed speakers is for us to take this insight and see what are the next steps, how can we move forward in terms of institutionalizing work and making it impactful, maybe in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that we are able to look at Nigeria and see that the Ummah is standing firm.
Thank you very much.
So what are the next steps?
Thank you very much. Sorry, before I respond to the next step, let me add to the last comments made by learned brother Ishola on the seriousness people should take and the commitment when it comes to the other components of Islamic finance. I believe there is one component that we've been missing when it comes to advocating for work, which we need to include it and inculcate in people whenever they do it. I personally have a practical experience in it, which is the spiritual part of work. Work is twofold. It has the worldly benefit to the beneficiaries, which creates socio-economic opportunities and address a lot of socio-economic challenges in the Muslim society. This is the material and the worldly gain. But the most important, and which is the uttermost purpose of it, is the hereafter benefit for the establisher, because work is a hereafter investment that somebody will embark upon. So if we were able to inculcate in people that this is not only worldly, it's not as you are supporting the needy and less privileged, which is the typical concept of the social financing and philanthropy in the conventional sector or in the capitalist society, because they are typically sadistically and egocentrically materialistic. They don't believe in the hereafter. So we're supposed to divorce that approach of capitalizing only on the socio-economic impact of work. Rather, we should consider the spirituality, the spiritual component of it. And this is where what we are advocating for, to have people have all seriousness for it, because they know that it is not a mere sadaqah they are giving to assist others. Rather, it is a age-long investment for their hereafter when they live in their grave, in the field of judgment, and and it will affect them in having their final destination after this world, because it is their extensive capital investment for the hereafter. If this is understood, if people who are made to understood this, then they will give it all the necessary commitment it requires. So it's not about only supporting people. If it sustains, no problem. If it doesn't, he's not affected. But now let's figure out
that this is your own venture. You are the first beneficiary of this project. If it fails, it is your own failure, because the more sustainable work becomes, the more beneficial it becomes to the establisher or to the donor. Therefore, I think we need to bridge this gap. Actually, I observe it in most of the conversations. We used to capitalize on the material, social, and economic benefits of work, forgetting the most important, which is the spiritual component of it. So I hope we'll all take it from there. Responding to your question, to my last next stage of action. Actually, we have identified the potentials of work in solving socio-economic challenges of the Ummah. Now, we have identified the challenges, majorly lack of awareness. That means that there is need for scholars and expert engagement to promote the practice and explore new innovations, as well as the robust legal framework where we facilitate and pursue government to see reason for making these regulations. Even at the federal level, we can make a case for it to be part of finance, so that as we are having, because the federal regulations are more robust and are more serious than the state regulations, as we all know. If we look at other regulators and the way they perform in the financial sector. See, so if we see that, even if it is the karma that will if there is any subsequent review, that will be incorporating some components of work, so that it will be taken away from the conventional trust of the equity doctrine of equity, as highlighted by the learned brother Dr. Ishola. So I think there is need for us to look for a robust legal framework for it. And this can only happen from the bottom-top approach, as I said, until when we practice the work that will be regulated, then we'll demand for regulation. We cannot look for regulation on an empty space. If there are no banks, central bank cannot be regulating any bank. So unless when we have the work that are available that can be regulated, those owners and establishers of these work institutions can now advocate for government to see reason for regulating this thing and setting framework and regulatory as well as the supervisory framework for all these things. Then there is also need for massive awareness creation through preaching gatherings, public lectures. If the preachers are engaged and were informed about the spiritual and the material benefits of work, then they will engage this in sending the messages, because they have the platform during their khutbah, during their weekly lessons, during their lectures, and all of that. Then we also include print and audiovisual media, jingles in the audio and all of that in promoting the work. Then there is also need for outreach sensitization for philanthropists and other rich individuals. This is very important, because some of these well-to-do people who can establish a mega waqf, they are not aware, and they don't attend the normal lessons in the mosques. So when they are reach out to their destinations, then they will do it properly. They will stand to understand they are living forously. They are forous. They don't prepare.
I think Prof has a glitch, probably. Okay, Prof, are you there?
Found it effective. Please, are you with me, please?
Okay, yes, we're with you now.
Hello.
You can go on. Yes, we can hear you,
Yeah.
Prof.
So if this well-to-do individual and philanthropists were being portrayed to be for us, that the way they are living, they don't have hereafter security. They will feel unsecured when it comes to hereafter, because they have not built some mighty projects that will assist their stay in the hereafter, which is endless. So this will definitely increase the practice. And as well, if there is need for a transparent system which is very important and key to this. And this is where the role of other capital market operators will come, who people trust to have their own investments for this world with them. So if there is a robust system that can accommodate their hereafter investments, I believe these people who trust them for their worldly investment can easily trust them for their hereafter investment, which is very key to promotion of the Waqf. And as well, because many people, if they are to do it, to spend a huge amount of money in their life, they may not do it. But when it comes to investment for the for their hereafter, after their death, through wasiya, make this so you create the foundation during your lifetime and make a wasiya that after your death, this property will now be transferred under the management of this foundation, under its trustees, and all the terms and conditions will be stated. Then finally, there is need for us to develop crowdfunding platforms for Waqf in order for many people to have opportunity to do it. When we establish credible platforms, I believe people will be ready if they are fully sensitized to do work for their hereafter benefits. And I finally emphasize on this hereafter benefits, and I always put it as a hereafter savings account. It's a mega investment for the hereafter savings account. So we need to promote this spiritual component of work. So thank you very much for having us this afternoon or this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will just quickly see if there's anybody with any questions before we round up. So I want to thank the participants, everybody who had joined this webinar and has been consistent with it. It's been a very insightful webinar, one of the best that I've hosted, because this is a matter that we actually need for the growth of the Ummah. So our brothers and sisters on the webinar, does anybody have any questions for the speakers? Okay, somebody is raising their hand up. Okay, it's Mr. Ismail. Wa alaikum assalam.
I think my question is to Prof. In Nigeria, we've had a lot of states with Zakat and Sadaka Waqf Foundation. However, most of it are being run without a defined operational model. So how can we institutionalize it, especially encourage virtually everyone who runs such kind of services to ensure that it aligns with the laid down principles?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ismail Rufai, brother Ismail Rufai, for this question. Actually, as I highlighted, after the implementation of Sharia in so many northern states around 2000, 2001, and 2, there were attempts by most of these states to establish departments of work under Ministry of the Religious Affairs, some of them under Sharia commissions, some of them even have gone far in establishing a standalone and full-fledged Waqf board or commission for Waqf and Zakat. But unfortunately, my empirical findings, I supervised many works at the master's and PhD levels that talked on that were carried out on Waqf in many states of northern Nigeria. The consistent finding is that many people, even in these departments, commissions, and boards, are unaware of the concept of work. Actually, most of them, they used to collect ordinary sadaqah and expend it. And when you ask them about what is the actual, where is the actual asset for work, they will begin to have no answer actually. And it is also another issue is that in some places there were some assets that were built by governments that were not properly managed. So actually, as I earlier mentioned, taking into consideration the peculiarity of the country where we live as a secular, we cannot adopt the system of Gulf countries who are stand-alone Muslim countries, where they establish ministries of Waqf and Awqaf and religious affairs and all of that, and they are being managed by government. In our own case, we can't afford to have the Waqf managed by government, and this is one of the key challenges that led to delay and the backwardness in the practice of Waqf. What we ought to do is we supposed to have government regulating, and that currently can be by the states. And if we further the conversation, even the federal government can regulate part of it. We can make case for this. It's all about law, it's how you interpret it. So currently it is the state that can regulate the Waqf, but unfortunately, I don't believe that the state governments realize this regulatory role they have in Waqf because of lack of this awareness. So we have to do a lot to create this awareness, have further engagements and conversations so that we make government see reason that there is need to regulate this existing Waqf. The current recommendation by the Association of Zakat and Waqf Operators is that even though company matters are under the federal laws, which are not under Islamic personal law, but the best thing is to establish a body corporate which have the right to manage perpetual assets, which is IT, incorporated trustees, under the Company and Allied Matters Act Part F, at least as a transitional arrangement for us, that even if we have a state government that will regulate, they will treat them as a legal entity that were created by law. And this is not the this does not mean that this has no other legal implications, but at least is the lesser harm that we have currently to have it, because once you have this foundation as incorporated trustee, you now created a legal entity that has juristic personality that can own asset. So this is one of the bases that we can currently have in the country. Then subsequently, with the hope that these organizations, if they are spread all over in our states, they will now see reason in agitating for government to regulate them, so that we will have this bottom-top approach, inshallah. Thank you, Brother Ismail.
Thank you very much, Prof. Adam. So another question just came in. We have two hands up. Suleiman, I think he dropped his question after him, then we'll take Ghazali's question. So quickly, Suleiman was asking, what's the difference between Sadaka to Jariyah and a Waqf? Since Sadaka to Jariyah is a perpetual Sadaka that is going to last a long time, but a Waqf is also going to last, it's perpetual. So what is the difference between a Sadaka to Jariyah and a Waqf?
Actually, it's like they are synonyms in nature, because the Sadaqah Jariyah is the one that came in another hadith of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, hadith of Abu Huraira, that was transmitted by Bukhari and Muslim, that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if you die, all your sources of rewards were stopped and shut down except the three. One of them is the Sadaqah Jariyah, that is the perpetual Sadaqah. So Sadaqah Jariyah Waqf is a type of perpetual Sadaqah that you do, and it will be continuous. But it is been detailed and expatiated in the hadith of Abdullahi ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, and that of hadith of Abdullahi ibn Mas'ud, who concurrently reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised Umar ibn Khattab and Abu Talha to preserve the coffers of the asset they own, and now make it as charitable the proceeds that is going to be getting. So in summary, Waqf is a type of Sadaqah Jariyah. It is also a perpetual charitable act that is promoted in Islam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Okay, Ghazali, we can take your question.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullahu anna khair. So I
I mean,
have
yeah.
a question regarding corporate trustee arrangement, managing Waqf through a corporate trustee arrangement. I recall that Dr. Ishola, may Allah reward him, during his conversation, I think the first question he answered about the knowledge gap, he made mention of trust, that he was reviewing a Waqf structure, and then the issue of trust came in. So it caught my interest because it's something that we've been considering. We are already in conversations about it. So I know basically the reason for appointing corporate trustees for Waqf is to manage the risk of financial mismanagement, and to also ensure that there is sustainability beyond individuals. But the essence is not actually to transfer the asset to them directly in form of ownership, rather in form of management. Or let me put it like this: if, for instance, a Waqif want to carry out his Waqf, and he want it to be managed by corporate trustees, with the understanding, the deed will be with the understanding that they are serving as managers, and they will work together. They are mandated to work together with a Sharia advisory board, so that the Sharia advisory board will be guiding them, and then the investments where they will invest will be strictly Sharia compliant, just to protect or to manage that risk of mismanagement, and then other financial risk as well. Will this will that compensate for the fear that Dr. Ishola has? I don't know if the question is clear. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Dr. Ishola, please.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Brother Ghazali. Let me say that what you have said is how it ought to be. But in law, that is not the implication. Even the trustee that I've mentioned, in Nigerian law now, we have two types of trustees. We have the trustees under the SEC, Security and Exchange Commission Act, which is more, is what trustees like those that belong to the banks and all that. That's what they register. They register with SEC. Then we have what we call incorporated trustees under the CAMA. So both of them, they have different legal implications. That's what I'm saying. Even though people would think that you are using them just to manage the property. For instance, in respect of the incorporated trustee under the provision of CAMA, the implication is that whatever property that you want to put in their care is presumed by law to belong to them, to belong to that incorporated trustee. And in the case of winding up, if the incorporated trustee has any problem and they want to wind up, the law requires that they should look for a similar non-profit organization to transfer all those properties to. And this would have effect on Waqf. Waqf is not supposed to be something that you now say because you are a manager. Like you have said, they are supposed to be ordinarily manager. And for that reason, they should not have anything, ownership or a kind of ownership control to now project such property as theirs. As the law stands, whatever property you give to any incorporated trustee, will be you have to register it in their name. And when you register it in their name, it belongs to them. Actually, I've had some fora where we have tried to raise and address all this conflict of law. That somebody does a Waqf now. Because what it takes for you to bring into Waqf is just to declare a property as Waqf, spelling out the terms and regulation. Usually we employ Waqf deed, Waqfiyya, in order to have proper documentation of all those things. Now, after you have done that, in the eyes of the Sharia, the Waqf becomes effective because you have done the needful, you have the witnesses, you have established, you have catered for all the necessary pillars of Waqf. Now, after that, you now say you are giving it to a particular incorporated trustee as manager. Whereas the law said that before such property can actually be legally recognized as being properly and lawfully in the custody of that incorporated trustee, you have to transfer the property to that incorporated trustee in its name, and thereby defeating the essence of Waqf. That is where I was raising some kind of concern. Like Prof. Adam said, if the state government realize that they have a lot of opportunity to do proper regulation of Waqf, all these issues would have been addressed in a way that even when you register a Waqf property, it will still maintain its legal recognition as given to it under the Sharia, and the law of the state, we also recognize it as such without necessarily defeating the essence of Waqf. But here we have a situation where the incorporated trustee is being regulated by a statutory legislation coupled with common law principles, just like the trustee we have under the SEC are also regulated by statute as well as principles of common law, while Waqf is regulated by Sharia with some principles that are not the same under the common law and the statutory provision. So it's a kind of conflict of law, which we just continue to manage until when we are able to have a robust law that we address such a conflict of law. I think Prof. Adam wants to make some contribution here.
And thank you, Brother Ishola, for raising this line of conversation. Actually, I had something related to it in the first question that I was asked related to the concepts. I wanted to raise it because I know maybe it is going to affect the conversation, which is the relationship between Waqf and trust. But the moderator didn't go to that length. He just asked about Zakat, Waqf, which are similar within the cycle of Islamic social finance. But when we compare Waqf with the trust, we'll find out that definitely horizontally and vertically, they are different. Even though there are some similarities when it comes to perpetual succession that both have. For the Waqf, it is purely Islamic institution. Some even researchers are of the opinion that even trust were copied by Europeans when during their medieval era from the Islamic world, and now they take it the way they convert it. When it comes to the issue of ownership, in Waqf, the ownership is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. While in the trust, there are two owners, the legal owner and the equitable owner. So the trustee are the legal owners, while the beneficiaries are equitable owners. This is maybe a little bit tricky. It's a legal term. So this is one of the major issues that affect even the operations. When we say that the best thing now, if we are registering any Waqf institution as a trustee, or alternatively, if we are appointing any corporate trustee as supervisor of a Waqf, both of them had the same implication. Even the corporate trustees, they were all under the common law and the equity doctrine of equity. They are the same. Once anything is placed under the corporate trustees, they are presumed by law to be the legal owners, and the beneficiaries are the equitable owners. So it is all the same, whether under ISA is Investment and Security Act, which established the incorporated trustee, the corporate trustees, or under KAMA 2020 Part F, which established the incorporated trustees. The concept is driven from the major concept of the doctrine of equity of trust that was established. These are seen as Sharia, as legal owners, trustees, and these are seen as legal
I think we kind of lost Prof. Adam there. Okay, so before we're able to get Prof back, I'll quickly take the question where Brother Muhammad Musa is asking, Assalamu alaikum, can one do work with the intention of having reward for himself and the deceased parent? So Dr. Ishola, I think you can answer that.
Yes.
Sorry, am I heard now? Sorry, I have some breakage. So if then, for example, 100 million and place it under the can you hear me, please?
Okay, Prof, go on, we can hear you.
Yeah, and place it under the trusteeship of 117 Capital. If they got the license, inshallah, we hope to have it very soon. So now, by law, it will be deemed that they are the legal owners of this amount, and the beneficiaries. For example, I did it for the orphans of Yobe. So orphans of Yobe are the beneficiaries of this, the proceed of the investment they carried out as trustees. If they take their own wakala or whatever proceed out of it, or for service they rendered, they are not owners of that amount. And if for any reason they are to liquidate, they are transfer it to another trustee, that perpetual nature is there, and they will never, by implication, use it as their personal possession. So also incorporated trustees, as you just highlighted, Section 827 of the CAMA provided that whenever there is liquidation, they have to transfer it to an organization with a similar purpose. So similar purpose means if a work organization is established and it has in some cost under the custody of some asset for work, definitely the similar organization must be another work organization to take care of it. So there is implication legally, but at the end, result end will not affect or will not vitiate the practice of work. This is the position that we have. I think we have a lot of conversations, and I remember Dr. Ishola has been presenting on this issue. So what I am saying is that maybe for the sake of clarification, yes, there is this legal implication, but currently the impact is very minimal. The impact is very minimal. This is not the best option we're supposed to have, but it is the currently available option that is safer for us currently to deal with the corporate entities that have legal personality, the juristic personality that can sue and be sued, that can own property in their name. If, for example, we now establish Al Ihsan Work Foundation, we now transfer the asset of a plaza to it. This is just legal. It's just a legal transfer. It does not mean that we donated to it. It is a work. The work is valid because the person that declared it has said that he has made this as a work. But for documentation purpose, it is now a deed of assignment. It's now being perfected in favor of Al Ihsan Waqf Foundation for the trustee. Now they are the legal owners, but nevertheless, the work is there and he's not transferring it to them. Rather, it's just for documentation purpose, and it is done in order to protect the original asset from tampering, because the more perpetual it becomes, the more rewarding it is. I hope I make some input. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. So, Dr. Ishola, you can go on with the question about the person asking whether he can do work with the intention of the rewards coming to him and his deceased parents.
That can be done. Even the workful for self, whatever you do, like Prof said, is one's personal investment. But I think the aspect that the person may be talking about is in terms of you also be a beneficiary of your own workful, or your parents being beneficiary. But in terms of doing them in your name or in the name of your parents, perhaps who are no more alive or even alive, in their own name, that can be done. And also in terms of making yourself as beneficiary, ordinarily the Maliki school, they are the one that go against self-benefiting workful. But other schools do not see anything wrong in that you do your wakfu, that you also make yourself as a beneficiary. And when we look at the IOFI standard, it goes with the majority view of recognizing that somebody who is the wakfu proprietor can also be a wakfu beneficiary. And I also believe that that is a kind of a good option, that if your wakfu is thriving or in one way or the other, so you can also be a beneficiary. A good example of this is for the schools owners, those who have schools and who want the school to be sustained after their death without the crisis of inheritance affecting it. The best is for them to make such a school as wakfu, even right from when they are alive, and spell out what is going to be the benefit of different beneficiary. And in that regard, they can also make themselves a beneficiary, apportioning certain portion of the proceeds coming from the school to themselves, and they will know that they are benefiting from it as wakfu. And after death, it will not make it difficult for the school to continue and also imparting as it has been, it's already been done, even while the proprietor is alive. So I hope that addressed the question.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So Suleiman is asking, what organizations or outfits would you recommend for someone who is interested in subscribing to Waqf? So, Doctor, you can answer that. However, if it's advisory, we have 117 Ethical Advisory that does advisory services for Zakat, Waqf, Wasiya, and all of these things. So there is for the advisory sector, but the individual clearly states subscribing. So I don't know if there might be a difference in that, and if there are organizations that once subscribes to Waqf, Doctor, if you know that, you can share.
Well, what I will say is that that question, like you have said, when you want to put up Waqfu, it goes beyond just looking for subscription through an organization. It's not like shares or whatever investment that you say you are looking for share. We must ensure that all the necessary, what do we call it? Necessary pillars are put in place. So perhaps the subscription you are talking about is when you now want to do it, instead of you getting involved in it or constituting your own manager. So who are those that can approach? And I think there we have a lot of Waqfu institutions among members of Azawan. And I also believe that some Islamic capital market like 117 are also coming up to key into this sector in bringing forth a platform where people can easily have their Waqfu managed for them, especially in terms of the investment. The only, caution that, or message that I may also want to pass to our Islamic capital institution like 117 is for them to try to avoid a kind of a mix-up in the attempt of getting involved in Waqfu. Because if it is, they should make it clear, or whatever structure they want to put in place should be in a way that will show that they are participating as a kind of investment manager, not trying to project themselves as mutawali of Waqfu. Because in that regard, there will be a lot of mix-up rather than just playing the role of growing the Waqfu fund for the Waqfu proprietor. They also turn themselves to Waqfu proprietor, manager, by saying that perhaps they are partnering with a particular Waqfu organization or whatever. So in essence, there will also be need for proper structuring so that they will not dabble into Waqfu in a way that there will not be a kind of a mix-up like what the questioner has asked, that how do we subscribe? They will now go to capital market platform. They will ask them come and subscribe to Waqfu, which whereas all the necessary pillars that are supposed to be there may not eventually be catered for. This is what I'm been observing with my ongoing review of some Waqf product that is being promoted by Islamic capital institution in the country. And I think this would be a kind of legal and Sharia worry for us. Prof. Adam.
Now, Prof, wants to add something to that.
Thank you, Prof. Dr. Ishola, for this insightful explanation. Actually, I think even that one, maybe instead of us stopping them from doing this, why not explore the legal way for them to even serve as the mutawalli? Mutawalli has the responsibility of overseeing and investing both. So the capital market operators, they can invest the proceeds as just investors for the funds that are under a particular mutawalli of awqaf. And in another respect, they can also serve as the mutawalli al-awqaf if they got the license of corporate trustees, or they created a special work fund that they are going to perpetually invest, and the proceed will be for a particular place that they identify, that they have these funds, and the proceeds of this fund will go to orphanages across the Muslim states. They have the registered, maybe they will take from each state, they will be giving them based on the proceed that they get. So that particular fund they create, if we make a regulatory framework for that, they can also have the dual role. They invest and they will serve as also mutawalli al-awqaf. So instead of us taking us back because they don't have it, the regulatory framework, why can't we increase the level of the involvement? Because the capital market operators approach is one of the reliable that we have currently, because it is fully regulated. They are being regulated as a corporate entity by Corporate Affairs Commission, and they are professionally regulated by their regulator as capital market operators by the Securities and Exchange Commission under Investment and Securities Act. So if SEC see reason for them to regulate this type of perpetual funds that are work-based under their custody, maybe they will see it as one of the areas, because as it stands currently, one of the areas we are having challenges is the annuity that is the Islamic insurance, which is many our people are subscribing. So the conventional insurance that many people are subscribing to, particularly those existed from their service under Fund 6, they currently subscribe to it because there is no any other alternative. And even at the insurance company, they cannot engage in such time if they are takaful, except if there is a perpetual work fund, or we have perpetual sukuk. So these are some of the areas that we should think outside the box to expand and explore ways of innovation, so that the regulator will see reason in creating regulations, because they are there to create regulations in order to manage things. So I think, Dr. Ishola, my advice for you when you review such products, let it be positivist, by exploring alternative. Whatever they do, instead of us stopping them, don't do this, is not part of what you will do. Why can't we explore ways through which we include this in the regulation, so that we'll have more inclusion? This is just my thought. Thank you very much. And I believe maybe we'll further conversation with Brother Ishola offline, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much, Doctor. So we've come to the end of this webinar, and we want to thank our esteemed speakers, Professor Adam and Dr. Ishola, for this insightful webinar. So most times when a webinar is pushing to almost 2 hours, you see individuals have left, but individuals have stayed to ask questions because of how important this concept of Waqf is for us as a society, as an ummah. So we want to thank you both for doing justice to this topic, and inshallah, we and other players within the space would see how we can take the first steps, the awareness steps, which is what we are currently doing, to ensure that people understand this. And then when the layman knows that there's something like a waqf, the same way they know zakat and all, then the same way, simultaneously, we're taking next further steps to put in frameworks around it and ensure that it's beneficial for the Ummah. So we want to also thank our participants for joining, and we would eventually send you guys the link to the recording. This recording will be uploaded on YouTube, and we'll send you via your emails the link to this recordings for you to benefit and share to other people. I have put up on the chat box the website 117 Capital, the call contact, and the info@117capital.com for further inquiries, or if you want to reach out to 117 regarding any of our services or any of the services of any of our sister companies as well. So till we meet again, I remain your moderator, Imran Musa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bye, everybody.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much. Barakallahu fikum.